Welcome back, everyone, and we hope you've had a very insightful morning and afternoon. We're now ready to begin with the last segment of the day. Our first session for this segment is a leaders' discussion on the topic Shift in Purpose, the Power of One. This discussion will focus on lessons from cutting-edge GCCs, building one team mindset and cultural integration, and a seamless one enterprise model. Our speakers for this session are Nikhil Sathe, CTO, Blackhawk Network. Nikhil leads the company's global technology strategy and teams in the expansion of its global footprint and capabilities in payments and payment technologies. A veteran technology executive, he has built, led, and scaled teams and platforms across technology and financial services. We also have with us this afternoon Julie Averill, EVP, CTO, Lululemon. Julie has played a critical role in transforming the retail business and enhancing guest experiences through innovative technology. She's a mother of three and enjoys Pilates, competitive sports, and spending time with the family in and around the Puget Sound. We also have with us chairing this session, Bala Girisaballa, Managing Director, Vista Equity Partners. Bala has over 2.5 decades of global experience in technology and business, an entrepreneur and an author. He has founded 3 startups and is an advisor to many startups and venture funds for over 10 years. He has also contributed to many books. It's a delight and a pleasure to have all 3 of you join us here this afternoon. Without further ado, over to you, Bala.
Thank you, Justin. And welcome, folks, for a fireside chat with my esteemed panelists here, Julie Averill and Nikhil Sathe. Julie is from Lululemon and Nikhil Sathe is from Blackhawk Network. Both of them have their GCCs in India. In the next 30 minutes, we would talk about their vision, their experience in terms of setting up, as well as what they are looking forward to. So welcome, folks. Welcome to the fireside chat.
Thank you, Bala.
Thank you.
So let's start it off with a round of introduction. You guys can probably let us know a little bit about your experience as well as about your organization, and then we will take it from there. Julie?
Thank you. So I'm Julie Averill, and I'm happy to be with everyone tonight. I work at Lululemon. We're a global apparel athletic brand. We've been around for over 20 years and we've grown quite substantially. I've been with the company 5 years. When I started, we were 2.3 billion in 2017, and we closed out 2021 at over $6 billion US dollars. And we have big ambitions to continue that growth trajectory. I lead the technology organization as CTO. And I've been in the process of digital transformation since I got here, which has been really exciting and has brought us to India as really part of our workforce strategy. So we have a team in India that we just started this November, but is a really strong and healthy team that we're super proud of. We're over 100 to date and growing pretty quickly. So appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Fantastic, Julie, and welcome to India. You guys have started recently, so hopefully this will be a great journey for you guys. So Nick, over to you. You're a veteran. You've worked with India and teams in India in your past experience as well. But if you could give us your introduction as well as your Blackhawk's journey.
Thanks, Bala. Really appreciate the opportunity to participate in this panel, and hope to learn more from Julie. We work together, but we never actually interacted. Blackhawk and Lululemon partner on a number of initiatives. As you mentioned, my name is Nikhil Sathe. Many people call me Nick. I'm the CTO of Blackhawk. Blackhawk is a global leader in the branded payment space, and we partner with thousands of brands and hundreds of thousands of points of presence. And we offer capabilities that started in traditional gift cards all the way to digital rewards and new capabilities that bridge digital payments and physical retail, such as our recently launched capabilities called Scan It and Spend It. So that's Blackhawk, and as Julie mentioned, she's relatively new to India. So is Blackhawk. We started our journey in India only 2 months before the pandemic hit, and we went from 10 people to over 400, all virtual, all done with teams being where they are over Zoom, and it was quite an experience.
Thank you, Nick, and that's fantastic to see that the entire journey, like all we are seeing, we are living in a post-pandemic world, and we have to kind of everything changed, the world order, the way we work, and our processes, and what we took as granted, everything changed. So it's good to kind of get to know your journey in the next 30 minutes about how you guys have done that. Just to kick off some bit of a context, and then we'll go into a discussion format. I'm Bala Girisaballa. I'll be your moderator. My job is reasonably easy. I just ask questions, and you guys are the ones who would probably explain more. But just to say, just to give a little bit of a background, I'm the managing director within Vista Equity Partners, and Vista is a global B2B software group, and I manage many of their global footprint for Vista across what we call as COE, which is the GCCs synonym. So with that, just as from a context perspective, the pandemic has changed the way we all think about our business, our talent, and our opportunities around us. So all of us are facing very different competitive pressures, and being in very tech-driven or tech-enabled industries, there is obviously it means a lot about how we look at our tech talent as well, and our availability, and how we work with them, and how we engage with them in a completely global and remote fashion. So I just wanted to kick it off this conversation. Nick, probably you can lead this. Is what kind of priorities that Blackhawk faces, particularly how has it changed since pandemic?
Yeah, I think there was obviously a trend. Blackhawk, as you may know, got its start with physical gift cards and physical retail. But our growth over the last several years has been in the digital use cases. And that has really accelerated tenfold over the pandemic, just because of, you think about everyday life has moved more online. The way that people have interacted with physical retailers has been more order ahead, pick up at the curb, all these sorts of use cases. And it similarly affected our business as well, where our digital channels have grown disproportionately faster than the physical channels. Now, we are seeing some of that snap back to physical coming back as the economy has opened up. But we're not seeing the digital channels slow down. And, similar to a lot of the other consumer services that you hear about, these digital capabilities are here to stay. And then finally, the capabilities in the network that we've built has a lot of integration that makes it possible for digital native companies to play more and more in physical. And that connective tissue between physical and digital is an area that we've seen a lot of growth in. And this is, of course, on top of our global expansion. We operate in 28 countries, having more of our capabilities available in each of those geographies. The transformation, Julie mentioned a technology transformation. We are very much in that same mindset. How do we transform to being more product and technology led, building turnkey products so we can scale faster and leverage the technologies more effectively in this new sort of digital reality?
Great, Nick. I think absolutely you're right. It's while the physical is coming back, I think digital is continuing to surge, and the use cases are getting more and more pervasive. So, Julie, give us your experience as well. You guys are retailers, but obviously tech is playing a much bigger disruptive role and how are you looking at your organizational priorities change in this?
Yeah, I mean, everything Nick talked about, in particular, those use cases, those all rang true for us, right? We saw the shift, and in a very short period of time, our sales shifted from the store channel to online, and we had to do things like all of our educators that were answering phones had to do that from their homes, and there's a lot of things that we had to just practice agility very, very quickly. So we learned new muscles, but we as an overall organization fared very well coming out of the pandemic for, I think, a couple of reasons. One, we strengthened that agility muscle as an organization. And two, we really became very clear on what our values were, right? Which were people first. Even through the entire pandemic, we didn't lay anybody off, including any of what we call our educators, which are in our stores. And the other thing is our strategy that we led into the pandemic held us strong as a company coming out of it. So our strategy remains the same. And it's three things. We call it the power of three. The first is about product, right? We sell really great product, and that continues to be the forefront of our business strategy, and our goals around that are, they're different these next 5 years than they were the last 3 years, but it's all about continuing to expand in the categories that we're really good at, and increasing in our men's business. And the second one is about market expansion. So, expanding in the markets that we're in and growing in new markets. And then the third one is about guest experiences. So innovating and creating new great guest experiences. So it's the same strategy for us that it's been successful for us. So we're gonna continue to build on that strategy.
So you guys have set up very recently in India. So just I'd want you to kick off this this particular question around how did you see this India as an ecosystem, its growth, and what did it mean to you guys from when you were evaluating in terms of creating a capability here?
From the beginning, we envisioned India being a tech hub like any other tech hub that we have anywhere in the world. So we have a technology hub in Vancouver, Canada. We have a tech hub in Seattle. We have satellite tech hubs in Hong Kong and London. So it was really important that we banned words like onshore, offshore, that we didn't call it a GCC, even though I know that that's a word that's used in India commonly, but is this notion of equity and equality, and having India be a part of our thought leadership from the beginning. Not just, this is nothing about outsourcing. It was nothing about moving jobs to India. It was nothing about cost savings. It was truly about getting top talent. And that's the mentality that we went into this, was being able to get really talented people to join our team. And that also meant adjusting our team that's in North America, right? And so we knew that going into it, that this was a learning experience both ways, and it was going to take flexibility on both sides. So it was part of our strategy, both in terms of our workforce as well as our leadership. So we just went into it with that mentality that India was a strategic lever for us, that was part of our growth enablement in the future. And we were going to need to learn into it, and we were going to need to lean into it.
What did you guys do to set this narrative that this is global citizenship of Lululemon? This is a center which is first-class citizenship there. And like you rightly said, if you have to get top talent, this is very critical as well. So what really involved in setting that at your headquarters?
I think it was a lot of things. I think it was buy-in from the board from the beginning. I mean, we're a company, we know how, we're global, right? So we have a presence in many countries around the world. And we value equity and inclusion as a company. But within technology, I mean, I've worked in various companies where we've worked with India as service providers, as outsourcers, and I've been to India in that capacity many times before. And so it was important for me as a leader to show up differently. And so, I went there for the grand opening, and it was just really important for there to be leaders there, for us to have North American leaders who understood the India culture, to go to India and bring the Lululemon culture there, and also bring the India culture into Lululemon so that they could be advocates in both ways, so that as we built benefits, right, they were both inclusive of what India needs and also representative of what Lululemon has. And, it's little things like that. And I think it was also building awareness to what's possible, and and building this strategic mindset to being purposeful from the beginning. You talked about change management, so I think that was also really important. Things like cultural integration workshops, getting champions in North America and champions in India to strengthen relationships and do team building, and also on the ground in India, taking a stand for things that are important to us as a company. So we've hosted LGBTQ plus events. We've hosted events for women in technology. We currently have over 40% women in our tech hub in India.
Okay.
And that takes purpose, and that takes effort.
Yeah.
And we have efforts underway to hire people with disabilities and trans people, and just that is core to our values. And so by doing this in India, like, that's what we stand for, and it brings in the community that we want to bring in, and that aligns with the values of those that we have in North America. So the culture is the same.
Fantastic, Julie. I think what you brought up is very important factor, particularly for if you are not looking at thousands of people, but you're looking at a few hundreds a year, is that it's a culture first strategy. I really love that message, is that you need to set the right culture that sets the tone for the rest of how people integrate, how people work with each other. It's a great message. I think it's a great learning, and for others as well who are coming in after you. I think it's a good practice that they can adopt. And Nick, over to you. A little different question. You are very familiar with this ecosystem. You have seen this ecosystem grow over many decades. I would love to understand from your vantage point, how have you seen this ecosystem grow? I mean, what were some of the things that surprised you with respect to its growth? And in this context, particularly from your current organization setup in India, what kind of capability do you envision to set up for your organization?
Yeah, thanks, Bala. As you said, I've either been fortunate, or I'm just old to have done this for the last 20 years. I have seen the strategy in India very much evolve in the same way that Julie described it, from being a a scale play for financial leverage. So these were, where you have large numbers of people, whether it was operations roles or quality assurance or QA roles or things that you would get financial leverage from, because that's the skill set that was available in India 15, 20 years ago. To where now I think the investment that has been made in India, both at the grassroots level from a STEM education standpoint, to the startup ecosystem, to some of the multinationals that have gone in and created the culture that's necessary of the deep engineering skills. And by the way, not just engineering, product managers. Some of the best product managers in the organization are in Bangalore or in India. Some of the best UX designers, some of the best infrastructure engineers, some of the best operations engineers. So, really looking at that ecosystem much more holistically and saying, what do we need to do to build a strategic development center like we have anywhere else in the world? I love the fact that I feel like I'm doing some things right because Julie corroborated a lot of the strategies that we're also adopting, and to really think about this as how do we enable and empower the teams there to be autonomous, to have accountability, and to be empowered to do work end to end. The other advantage that we have in India is, if you think about, just to give you a little brief background about Blackhawk, we've grown through a number of acquisitions over the years, and we have 4 major centers around the world where we have software and product engineering talent here on the west coast of the US, in the San Francisco Bay Area, in Dallas, in London, and now in Bangalore. And these centers have sort of focused on different aspects of our product line. Bangalore is the only location where we actually have engineers and product managers that go across all of our product lines. So as we think about the kinds of collaboration and work that can happen in a single time zone, which is extremely difficult to do anywhere else in the world, we're also taking advantage of that co-location so that teams can be even more autonomous and more empowered to do end-to-end work. And I think that that's really important because, as you set up these centers, the one lesson that I've learned in the past is that, you are far more effective if you do more end-to-end work in these centers. As opposed to, and by the way, that's the case in any location, right? It's not just India. We're also trying to do the same thing in the Bay Area and in Texas and in the UK, where we're trying to bring a lot more of that end-to-end work together so that we don't have, the brain in one geography and the arms and legs in another geography, to use a broken metaphor. But anyway. So I think those are some of the things that we're looking at as we sort of think about the work. To add a little bit of color to one area that we've experimented with is in the culture aspect, is that this is a shared responsibility. The success of all of our centers is a shared responsibility. There's not some GM in India that is responsible for India being successful. All the organizations there are aligned globally, where we have global leadership. And in fact, we even have some reporting relationships now where we have people in other geographies reporting to leaders in Bangalore. So we're trying to be a lot more equitable in that aspect as well. And we're also sharing the burden of time zone differences. This is something that's a reality. It is something that you have to figure out how to deal with. Obviously, by allowing teams to do more end-to-end work, you're reducing the need for high bandwidth communication, but you still need it. And so, simple practices like we've established collaboration hours, 2 days a week, the US teams stay late, 2 days a week, the India teams stay late. So that you sort of have that flexibility. Some teams have even done it where, because the time zone difference from the West Coast is particularly bad. But in daylight savings time, when it's a 13.5-hour time difference, then teams here stay late more than teams in India stay late, because it's more conducive to to those hours. Whereas in when we're in standard time, we flip that model. So again, I think that there are lots of approaches where it's not something that is lopsided, and the burden is not put on any one geography or any one team to sort of suck up the staying late, etc. We do all of our all hands, and we're just starting to put this into practice here, where everything is recorded. So even people that cannot attend in live, because there is no. I also have a team in Australia. It's impossible to find any one time zone where everybody can attend live. So in past organizations, we've done all of our big sort of all hands meetings twice during the day. Once in a time zone that's friendly, for certain geographies and others. So it's all these little things that do add up, and it shows the commitment to not treating any one location as secondary to another, which I think goes a long way in creating that inclusive culture where people feel like they're part of the bigger mission.
That's fantastic. I think what you talked about, shared responsibility and not creating lopsided burden, is very critical from a messaging perspective to kind of walk the talk, because a lot of times we do say it, but it ends up being, at least from a perception perspective, it ends up being seen as a little lopsided. So I'm glad you really brought that up.
Look, I will just want to be clear. It still is lopsided. There are certain things that you cannot accommodate easily, but as long as the intention is there and people feel like the effort is being made, it's easier to deal with.
Absolutely, you're right. One point that you brought up, and both of you brought up in different contexts, but this point was, I thought we should probably get both your opinions on it, is the level of autonomy. Obviously, the time zone difference also creates that. You rightly said, for teams to be effective, it needs to be reasonably autonomous. The level of autonomy, there's a need for autonomy and there's a need for integration, because you also need to feel connected. You don't want this teams to be siloed. How do you guys balance this, like particularly in a smaller teams? So Nick, if you want to kick off that, and then I would also love to get Julie's views on that.
Yeah, again, it's about balance, right? It's about finding the things that work for the organizations and for your specific goals and objectives. In our case, there were two things that we tried to do. One was try to align the work with the location that made most sense. So as an example, we're doing an integration project with Lululemon to deliver a capability in Japan. That work is largely being done by the team in Bangalore, because that is, a much higher, much more proximal to the market. The product managers can have more empathy for the use cases that are going to be relevant in that market, and the teams can turn things around much faster. The other is a more structural thing that we did. So as part of our overall transformation, we also took the entire organization and divided up into what we call product lines. And product lines are sort of cohesive sets of capability that achieve a particular business outcome or revenue, support a revenue center, et cetera. Within those product lines, we've broken up into sub-product lines. And what we've tried to do is to say, okay, there are sub-product lines that are going to be led from India. We had a product line that we were leading from India called digital payments, and then we decided to reorganize a little bit more differently. But at the end of the day, if there's a way that you can say, hey, there's a product line with a well-defined strategy, which is the connective tissue to keep it all together, But from a day-to-day execution perspective on, those are things that the team can run much more autonomously, which, by the way, tend to be higher bandwidth kinds of communication needs as well, right? So strategy, it's relatively easy to, it's lower bandwidth. Yes, it's more intense, but once you've defined it, it sort of has longevity, and you don't have to go back and revisit it, all that often. So again, that's one technique that we've used to try to create that connective tissue at the strategy level, and then enable teams that do work end to end. And when I say end to end, it's literally, the product managers are in Bangalore, the UX designers are in Bangalore, the engineers are in Bangalore, the software engineers in test are in Bangalore. So it's the entire end-to-end definition and engineering that happens in that location. And by the way, that's also similar to what we do in Dallas and what we do in the UK.
Got it. Fantastic, Julie. What's your what are your ways of managing this balance?
Oh, first of all, I feel like Nick and I should be having daily one-on-ones. I feel like so much of what you said is almost exactly what I would say. So you probably learned this before I did, but I would echo so much of what you just said, Nick. So in terms of, though, how would I balance, how do we balance? This India does not change our operating model, does not change our leadership model. And I think that's what you were saying as well, Nick. So how we divide work and how we work does not change. So where we can distribute work across multiple locations, we do that, and we work through all the issues of sharing work, distributing work. We distribute that responsibility to the teams, right? So we talk openly about, all right, how's you as a team need to work out what's best for you as a team. And they get really creative, because sometimes we'll have a team in New York and in Columbus, Ohio, and in Vancouver, Canada, and in Hong Kong and India. And so they have to figure out what works best for them, and they do. And then in our digital teams, for example, it's really important that we start with product and we go all the way through with the full stack team. And so there's more conversations that happen there, because that includes a lot of teams that are in Vancouver, and maybe we're not ready to even test that functionality yet, but maybe there are some areas where we can. And so it's more surgical in terms of what sort of things we want to do in India versus in other parts of the world. But this is all about fluidity as an organization, and flexibility, and going where we have the capacity and where we have the talent. So with that being our overarching strategy of being one global team and having the ability to flex, it gives us a lot of, I think, capacity to move. And the other thing I was going to say is, I think the most important, which is it's all relationship based. You can only do this if the teams trust each other, right? So you can't have a situation where you feel like one is taking away and or maybe threatening the other one. It has to be, we're the same team, and how do we want to do this together? And that's the key that I found to making it work. Because without that, and that means you have to create a safe environment. This is not a zero-sum game. And with that, I think that you can figure out how to best move the work to make it most logical for everyone involved.
Got it. Fantastic. That's quite very inspiring, as well as I think really good thoughts for companies who are thinking about it and doing it in this way. My last question is primarily, I'm sure, India is not all bed of roses. There is, very tight competition for talent, and there are other challenges. We spoke about some of them, but what challenges do you guys anticipate, as well as what is it that you're doing to kind of counter that? Julie, I'd love to hear from you first, and then we'll go to Nick.
Well, one of the things that's challenging for us is that we are all but an unknown brand in India, whereas in Vancouver and in the US, right, we're highly known. So when we are recruiting, we have the extra challenge of telling people who Lululemon is. So that's a challenge. However, what helps us in that is as we build this culture that we believe is different, that becomes a bit of a flywheel, because the people who are part of it, which are, really top talented engineers, people who want big challenges, they have a network and they're bringing in more people who want to be part of this. So it does help us attract the type of talent and the type of people that we want to bring into it.
Got it. Thank you, Julie. That makes a lot of sense. Nick, your comments on this.
Yeah, so I think that the biggest challenge right now is, we had the unfortunate timing of building this team out during the pandemic, where most people, even that are local in India, have never met each other. In fact, some people haven't even moved from wherever they were to Bangalore, because and we also had the opposite happen, which were people that were in Bangalore moved to take care of their parents or their families that were elsewhere. So I think, figuring out how do we create the right balance going forward, because I think virtual work or this hybrid model is here to stay. And we have to figure out how to build new muscles. And this is equally important in India as it is anywhere else in the world. In the rest of the world, we obviously have the benefit of having long tenured employees that already, have built those relationships and the relationship culture that Julie talked about. We have to figure out how to do that now from scratch in a completely hybrid model. There is a challenge that I think everybody that goes into India needs to know about, which is there's still a tendency for people to job hop to the next best thing, and so my advice to the talent pool themselves and people that are out there is, I think that's okay to sort of gain those experiences in the early part of your career. I would strongly recommend that as you think about your own skill set and growth, think about more than just money. Think about how do you build those experiences that are going to establish that foundation that you can grow into leadership and can grow into positions where you can be making a larger impact in a company that you believe in. So I would say, spend the time on making sure that you go join a company that you believe in, that is going to invest in you, and then you can make that sort of commensurate investment back in growing your career at that company. So I think those are certainly some of the things that we're dealing with. Obviously, we're still growing. We still have a lot of passionate technologists that we're attracting to come work for us. We have an additional challenge, which is we're not even a consumer brand. Nobody knows that we are the platform and the infrastructure behind a lot of the experiences that people see. And so, continuing to attract people to see the value that we bring and the impact that they can make at a company like Blackhawk.
Fantastic. And that's a great message, Nick. And I think you've summed it up beautifully. I think this ecosystem definitely does need to reflect on that. Thank you very much to both of you, Julie and Nick, for sharing your experiences, sharing your thought process, And I think there's a lot of takeaway for companies existing as well as the companies which are thinking about setting up their entities in this ecosystem. Just to quickly, 30 seconds sum up from what I could, kind of gather a few things. I really enjoyed that you need to start with the culture first, and that sets the tone for everything else. Create equity, shared responsibilities, and that's intention. I mean, obviously, the time zone is something you can't physically, solve for, but the intention and setting it up in a right way is very critical. And then we also talked about having more building trust within the teams, and that's very critical as well to kind of build a long-lasting and a very effective and well-integrated, kind of team. So thank you very much for sharing those thoughts as well as your experiences. And with that, we close down this fireside chat. Over to you, Justin.
Thank you, Bala, for chairing that session. And thank you to our speakers, Julie and Nikhil, for that very interesting discussion.